morning, everyone. Myself, Yogita Adlaka. I work as research scientist at Translational Health Science and Technology Institute. And I thank the organizers for providing me this opportunity to talk about my work, which most of the work I have carried out at National Brain Research Center. So look at this boy. He doesn't like making eye contacts. He doesn't like making friends. He doesn't like making talking to the other people because he suffers from autism. Autism is a type of brain develop. It is a brain disorder because of the unusual brain development, and autism comes under the broad umbrella of neurodevelopmental disorder. Neurodevelopmental disorders are caused by the disruption of brain development, and they not only impact the life of the patient but also devastate the life of family members because they have to take care of the special child. So in that way it imposes a heavy social and economic burden for societies worldwide, and manifestation in neurodevelopmental disorders include diminished cognition, impaired motor skills, communication, and learning. According to a recent report in India, every 1 in 8 children can have a neurodevelopmental disorder, and every 1 in 100 children can be afflicted with autism. And in US, this ratio is even more worse. So, because of the lack of human-based model systems, molecular signatures associated with these neurodevelopmental disorders are not clear. So, human-based model systems are clear the need of the hour to study the pathogenesis of these disorders. Human brain is a highly complex organ which is made up of almost 86 billion neurons, and beside neurons there are other supporting cells such as microglia, astrocytes. These neurons are the primary structure and functional unit of brain which performs the basic function of brain such as processing and passing of the information and signal. And fetal human brain development starts very early on during pregnancy. It starts around 23rd post-conceptional day, and it continues to develop throughout the pregnancy and also during the first 2 years of childhood. And there are neural stem cells which are present in the distinct regions of the brain which are responsible for generating distinct progeny of brain like neurons and glia cells. With the help of symmetric division, neural stem cells maintain uh, their population, and with the help of asymmetric division, they give rise to neurons and microglia and astrocyte cells in the brain. And different signaling pathways such as Notch, Wnt, BMP, they have been found to significantly impact neural development. So if we compare the brain of different animals with human, we will find there are differences with respect to size as well as neurogenesis and organization. See, the human brain is quite bigger than the mouse, and it has several folds in the form of gyri and sulci, which are absent in mouse. And with respect to neurogenesis, so ventricular zone is the region in the human cortex where stem cells are present and they give rise to neurons. However, in case of human, this subventricular zone is dramatically expanded into outer and inner subventricular zone, and cortical plate is also quite expanded as compared to mouse, and there are gyres and sulci and folds in human which are absent in mouse. So it is quite from here it is clear that animal models cannot recapitulate all of the human brain features, and we clearly need human-based models to study the pathogenesis of diseases. So we question how we can develop a human-based in vitro model system to mimic the neural development. So here we got help, or we can say induced pluripotent stem cells show us the way by which we can derive neural stem cells from these iPSCs. So these iPSCs was first derived by Shinya Yamanaka, for which he got Nobel Prize in 2012, and these iPSCs are actually embryonic-like stem cells which can be generated from adult somatic cells, and they can then give rise to any type of adult somatic cells such as neural cells, pancreatic cell, adipocytes. So we use peripheral blood, and we derived iPSCs from these peripheral blood via the isolation of CD34 positive cells. Then we differentiated these iPSCs into human neural stem cells, and we called them as human-induced neural stem cells because they were induced from iPSCs. Then these human neural stem cells were further differentiated into neurons to assess their differentiation capabilities. And we found that all of these cells that were generated in our cell culture, they stained positive for their respective markers. MicroRNAs are actually the small non-coding RNAs which regulate gene expression by binding primarily to the 3' UTR, and they cause mRNA cleavage or translational repression. And they regulate a number of biological processes such as apoptosis, development, differentiation, and their dysregulated expression or function can result in severe diseases such as cancer and neurological diseases. However, the fundamental role of microRNAs in human neural development is largely unknown. Literature suggests that microRNAs also function at specific stages during neural development, such as starting from the proliferation of stem cells, specific microRNAs function, and then in several stages leading to the maturation of microRNAs, several microRNAs show their discrete function. So we question what is the role of microRNAs in human neural stem cell fate determination and what are the underlying molecular mechanisms. In one of the mRNA screening, we found microRNA 137, which is a brain-enriched microRNA. It was downregulated in our neural stem cells as compared to iPSCs and neurons. So we got interested in this microRNA because literature studies using animal models suggest that microRNA 137 promotes differentiation and it reduces proliferation. It also plays a role in dendritic development. So dendrites are present at the cell body of the neurons, which help in the perceiving of the signal. And microRNA 137 also plays critical roles in several neurological disorders, and role of miR-137 in human neural development is not known. So we got interested in this microRNA. We overexpressed microRNA 137 with the help of MIMIC and inhibit microRNA 137 using inhibitor in neural stem cells and performed functional assays. We measured the proliferation of neural stem cells after overexpression of microRNA 137, and we found that the proliferation of neural stem cells or Ki67 positive cells reduced in presence of miR-137. So we next assessed the role of microRNA 137 on differentiation of HINSCs, and we found that the early marker of differentiation such as DCX and TUJ1, their expression increase at day 5th of differentiation in the presence of microRNA 137 at 40 nanomolar concentration. However, anti-MIR 137 was able to abrogate this effect. Next, we investigated the effect of microRNA 137 on the expression of different neuronal markers, and we found that the transcript levels of early neural markers as well as other neuronal markers increased, such as ROBO2, SPOC1, DCX, their transcript levels increased, and TUJ1, which is the early neuronal marker, its protein levels were increased in presence of miR-137. Because migration is an inherent process during neural development, so we next studied the effect of miR-137 on migration of neurons from differentiating neural stem cells. And we found that in presence of miR-137, migration of neurons was increased. Not only migration, but the sprouting of neurons was also increased in presence of miR-137. So on the basis of these results, we formulated a model and we proposed that miR-137 promotes differentiation of human neural stem cells. And then we asked, because neurons are highly metabolically active cells, so which depend upon mitochondria to satisfy their energy needs. So whether and how mitochondrial dynamics are regulated by miR-137 or not. So by mean of mitochondrial dynamics, I mean to say how mitochondrial biogenesis, fusion, and fission, whether they are regulated and they are getting impacted by MIR-137. So next we assess the mitochondrial biogenesis pathway after overexpression of microRNA 137, and to our surprise, we found that the master regulator of mitochondrial biogenesis pathway, PGC1 alpha, was reduced in presence of MIR-137. However, other key regulators of mitochondrial biogenesis pathway such as NRF2, TFAM, SIRT1, they were increased. So to confirm what is happening actually to mitochondrial biogenesis, we stained our cells with MitoTracker and found that mitochondrial content increased in presence of microRNA 137, and mitochondrial DNA content was also increased in presence of MIR-137. So, because newly generated neurons, they depend upon oxidative phosphorylation for satisfying their energy needs. So we questioned what is happening to the oxygen consumption rate in presence of microRNA 137, and we found that microRNA 137 augments oxygen consumption rate in neural stem cells by increasing basal respiration as well as maximal respiration. Because microRNA, so from here, and we also performed some mitochondrial fusion and fission assays. I'm not showing that data here because of the time constraint, but we did find that microRNA 137 increases mitochondrial fusion and fission as well. Because microRNA normally function by targeting their genes, they, as I told in my beginning slides, that microRNA bind to the 3' UTR and then they downregulate their gene. So with the help of bioinformatics software, we found that MEF2A was the predicted target of MIR-137, and MIR-137 binds to 3' UTR at a specific location with the help of 8 base pair of seed sequence. And this binding was conserved among different species. And with the help of luciferase assay and Western blot, we found that yes, MEF2A is a direct target of MIR-137, where MIR-137 downregulates MEF2A. So MEF2A is a very interesting protein. It is actually a regulator, transcriptional regulator of PGC1 alpha. So from here, we concluded that, okay, microRNA 137 is actually downregulating MEF2A, which in turn downregulate PGC1 alpha, but somehow microRNA 137 is enhancing mitochondrial biogenesis. So based on these studies, we proposed another model where we find that MIR-137 promotes differentiation by promoting mitochondrial biogenesis, mitochondrial OXPHOS, fusion and fission, and in that way it targets MEF2A and downregulates PGC1 alpha, but still it enhances mitochondrial biogenesis in a PGC1 alpha independent way. So this was all about my first of the work that I have carried out at NBRC. My next part of the talk is based on the work that I have carried out at National Institute of Health, USA. So retina is often referred to as the window to the brain, and loss of sight is considered one of the most feared disability. So retina is the innermost light sensitive part which is present on the outer part of the eye, inner part of the eye, backside of the eye, and it perceives all the light signals and pass this information to the brain. Retina is made up of 6 types of neurons which are arranged in 3 distinct layers, and photoreceptors are the main light sensitive cells which are present in the retina, and there are 2 types of photoreceptor, rods and cones. The rods are responsible for the dim light vision, cones are responsible for the color and highly acute vision under bright light. So both these photoreceptors, they harbor a type of modified cilium which is known as outer segment to enhance the light detection. So there my work was based on retinal degenerative diseases such as Leber congenital amaurosis and Xavier syndrome. Both of these diseases are congenital diseases and they belong to ciliopathies. Why? Because there occur defects in primary cilia biogenesis and of function. I told that cilia is present in photoreceptors. So in the presence of any defect, and 1/3 of the patient carry a mutation in the gene which is CEP290. It is the centrosome cilia gene which is important for cilia biogenesis and transport. Mouse CEP290 mutants are available and they recapitulate several features of these diseases. However, my biological impact of distinct human CEP290 mutations are not clear. So my work involved the disease modeling of these retinal degenerative diseases, where we derived iPSCs from patients and healthy subjects, and they stained positive for the pluripotency marker. And with the help of 3D to study the pathogenesis of the disease, in the 3D culture using a specific protocol, we derived retinal organoids and we maintained these retinal organoids till 200 days to achieve photoreceptor maturation. So one of the advantage of organoid system is that in the organoid, all cells are there in one particular mixture. So we can study the interaction of the cells in a 3D culture. So that's the advantage of retinal organoid, which we cannot find in 2D culture. So with the help of these retinal organoids, we find that the thickness of the retinal layers was actually decreased in these ciliopathies as compared to control subjects. And migration of neurons was also defective in JSRD patient as compared to control. And RNA-seq data also suggests that our retinal organoids actually recapitulated in vivo retinal development in 3D culture. So this work is currently going on at NIH, and I would like to conclude my talk as so our human neural stem cells that we have generated from induced pluripotent stem cells, they serve as a model to study neurological diseases. And MIR137 definitely affects human neural stem cell fate determination. MIR137 reduces the proliferation of human neural stem cells and it enhances differentiation. And MIR137 accelerates mitochondrial biogenesis, OXPHOS, fusion, and fission, and thus affects energy homeostatic pathways. And organoid model definitely present a better model which can recapitulate in vivo organ development in a 3D culture. So I would like to acknowledge CSIR IGIB, from where I pursued my PhD with Dr. Neeru Saini and Dr. Yogendra Singh for providing me tremendous guidance and support throughout my career. And I am grateful to Dr. Anand Swarup, who provided me postdoctoral training at National Eye Institute, NIH, USA. And I am also highly thankful to my mentors at NBRC, Dr. Pankaj Seth and Dr. Anirban Basu, and Professor Subrata Sinha, who was former director at NBRC, for providing me financial and infrastructure support. And finally, DST for providing me DST Inspire faculty grant. And I thank you all for patiently listening to me.